Good morning and welcome back to Open Hand Farm. My name is Penny and my husband Mark and I live on an acre and a half, and we have chickens and rabbits and gardens. We have our own little homesteady farm in the middle of the city. So come along and let me show you our backyard gardens. It's been a month since my last garden tour, and it is amazing how different it is. Now, the first month we had rain. This month, not so much, but it's still doing great. So let's go see what's growing. We're gonna start here in the clothesline bed. This has really taken off. We have potatoes here, and we have put down drip hoses throughout our garden beds because watering by hand like I did last year and every year before that is just impossible this year. These are our peppers, and as you can tell, they're starting to kind of lay over a little bit. So now I need to come in and start staking. We have been so busy with so many other projects that I just haven't been able to do that yet. Now, these are my straw bales that I planted just a few weeks ago. So they are not as far along as the rest of my gardens, but as you can tell, they are thriving and working on growing fruit. This delicata squash was planted from seed, so it's doing great. So we have peppers here and a few flowers. Something ate my artichoke, but it is coming back with full vigor, so I'm happy with that. We have flowers here. Behind the flowers we have sweet potatoes, and last month I had just planted these sweet potatoes, and look how crazy they're going. Over here we have an herb garden. Sweet potatoes are wanting to sneak through the fence that I put up for them because they would take over this whole area. So what I try to do is just find the source of the leaves and pull it through. There we go. Got it back in again. But these are just starting, and that's when I really want to catch them so that I don't do any damage to the stems. My yarrow has flowered. I need to cut it back. As you can see, it's already starting its regrowth. My oregano has gone to seed, and my thyme has gone to flower. Now, since last month, these sunflowers have grown, and I went ahead and put my bird bath back here instead of in my front garden because I'm usually back here, and I love seeing the birds in it. My favorite thing right now is they will come and land on the branches of the sunflower and then jump into the water and just enjoy themselves in this area. And the sunflower gives shade to the water in the heat of the day so that it doesn't get too hot. This borage is just showing off so much. It's going crazy. As well as the Malabar spinach. Now, last month, these were just tiny little plants that didn't even reach the trellis yet. And these things are growing about 3 to 4 inches a day. So every day I come out here and I take these, and I could break them off, but I don't. And I feed them back through the trellis. And yesterday I did it, and you saw how big that one was. See this one? I just feed them back through. As you can see, I've done here. And that way they can continue growing on the trellis instead of up in the air where there's nowhere to be. Eventually they would fall down. We've been picking this periodically to give to the chickens and the rabbits. Look at this. You guys, this was not like this yesterday. Is that crazy or what? This stuff, if I had known it was going to grow so well, I wouldn't have planted so much. But I had planted this 3 years in a row with no success. So once they started germinating this year, I'm like, okay, I'm going for it. And because I'd never grown it, I had no idea how vigorous it was. So here I am with enough Malabar spinach to feed the whole neighborhood for a year. Down here we have eggplant, and as you can see, they've started to bloom. So I'm going to be taking this cover off so that the pollinators can pollinate them, and they can provide me with some eggplant. Here's another view of the herbs and all the sunflowers and the sweet potatoes. Now let's go over to the food forest. Now the food forest is a work in progress right now. It was covered in weeds. Here's a picture of what it looked like 2 days ago. And I came out here and just worked and worked and worked and got them out. And then Mark started filling it with mulch. So he's done 25 loads so far. And I also had to tie up the tomatoes because they had not been strung up to the trellis yet. But these are a sweetheart cherry tomato, so they're kind of shaped like a heart. I'm really excited to taste them. Apparently they are very, very sweet. We also have an abundance of cosmos. Because we have so many, I had to come in here and pull out a whole bunch of them like I would a weed. And I wanted to have enough space around them that I could add some mulch in here. So now I think I can. Last year, I planted zinnias here, and I have never had my zinnias come back. But this year they did. I was so excited about that. So I have plenty of zinnias going on here as well. This is my agastache. This has a kind of root beer / licorice taste to it, and it will have purple, orange, and pink flowers. It's just so pretty. And anise hyssop, another one of my favorites that definitely tastes like black licorice. Now another thing that reseeded itself this year that I've never had done before is this basil. Now this is a blue spice basil, and it has a vanilla sweet aroma and taste that is just incredible. It is great for basil tea. It's just delicious. And I went ahead and started a couple of seeds of it, and I put them very carefully, put little fences around them so they didn't get hurt. And then all of a sudden I look in the food forest and it's everywhere. So don't worry, I have blue spice basil. If you would like some of the seeds, let me know, because as you can see, I have plenty. We have asparagus that was too little to eat this year, so we just let it go, and when it dies back, we'll cut it down. And you can see that there is new mulch in parts of the food forest and piles of mulch that just need to be addressed. I need to spread these piles in and amongst the basil and the flowers, so that's why they're sitting here. That's my job to do. Our peach trees are kind of crazy this year. They did not fruit because their blossoms got frozen, so instead they put all of their energy into the green, and it is crazy to walk in and amongst them. This is a ground cherry. If you've never tried ground cherries, they are so cool. Let me see if I can find one that's ripe in here. I don't see any that are ripe, but they're from the tomato family, and they're a cross between a tomato and a cherry. But they come in a little paper wrapper like a tomatillo does. So when this turns yellow and the wrapper gets dry, then the cherry is ready. So you can just pop it out. Oh wait, I see one right here. So you just open the wrapper and there's the cherry. It's a very interesting taste. It's not necessarily tomato tasting, but it has a very sweet flavor to it. So I had been trying to grow these, and I finally got a plant to grow. A friend gave me one, and it's doing great. Over here, of course, we have mint going crazy, and more blue spice basil that just came up on its own. Now, I did have garlic in here, and in here. And about a month ago, it just all died. I don't know what the problem was, because I did not want Bermuda grass in this box. After we made it, I knew I would just plant shallow plants in them. So you can see the black cloth right there. We put black cloth on the bottom of it. And I think probably with all of the rain we had, it just held too much moisture in there and it drowned them out. So I'm not planting anything in here right now. I will go in and find what garlic there is, but then I'm going to take all the soil out. I'm going to take the black off and then put soil back in and try them again this year. I had such high hopes for my garlics and they were doing great. And I mean, it was like a couple of days I came out and they were just all dead. So that's the only thing I can think of. Over here we have a trellis, and on that trellis we are planting different squashes. So they're starting off really well. They were just planted about 3 weeks ago, so it hasn't even been a month, but they're doing well. And right down the middle of the trellis you can see all those little plants. Yes, that is blue spice basil. I'm so glad I worried about the tiny little plants that I had, as well as here and here and here. But I will share it around with my friends because they loved it as well. So over here we have our, what was last year a green bean teepee, but the green beans never grew. I did plant on the corners of this teepee a sunflower. Well, the sunflowers decided to drop their seeds and they grew, and I decided we would just make it a sunflower teepee. The kids love it. They love to get in there. I put some rocks in it. I'll probably put some more in after the mulch is all situated so that they have a floor base to sit on. It's a lot of fun to just watch these sunflowers grow up and form the walls of this teepee. And back in this corner we have more herbs. We have more anise hyssop, yarrow, echinacea, and comfrey. The bumblebees love all of these flowers, and that's the reason I like to plant them. I did pull up a bunch of the anise hyssop like I did the Cosmo flowers, because as you can see, they drop their seeds and we have them everywhere. This grouping here, I probably could have pulled a couple more of these flowers out and some of the anise hyssop, but we'll just see what happens. I do have some climbing green beans, so we'll see how they do. They don't get a lot of sun because of the sunflowers, but we'll just let them go, see what happens. Oh, we also have our blackberries back here, and they are doing really well. They had been frozen off, some of them, so I didn't have very many vines, but as you can see, they're coming back and they're starting to churn colors, and I'm just really excited that they didn't all die off. Over here are our fig trees that I also wondered if they were not going to make it this year because of the really cold weather we had, but they're doing great. Actually, it's bigger than I've ever seen it, and this one is pretty big, but that one is really, really big. So I'm hoping to get some good figs this year. Oh, I think I see them coming on. Oh, look, baby figs. And I hate this bindweed. The figs come on in like the armpits where the leaves are. And when I look at all these little armpits, I see little nodules coming up. So I'm thinking we're gonna have a really good fig year, which we never have had. I'm really excited about it. Oh, see, there's one right there. That's what will come up in these armpits, these little nodules. How exciting. Now there is the chicken house, and now we're gonna go to the chicken bed. Now you'll see that we have a chicken out. Mark and I just made this new contraption for them. We call it our roving salad bar, because we are in the suburbs and we have houses right around us. We have to have at least 150 feet between us and our neighbors to house the chickens. This spot right here was 150 feet away from all the neighbors. There are no other spots, which means we cannot free range them or move them around. They have to be in their pen. But we decided maybe it would work if we just put 1, 2, or 3 in this roving salad bar and give them a chance to eat off the grass. I just put one in this morning. We're going to be leaving, which we will not leave them out here if we are going to be leaving, but I wanted you to see how it was working. And you can see she loves eating the grass. They have water there, the little cup, and then they have a little panic box that they can go into so that they can be kept safe if predators come. And there is wire on the bottom of the panic box as well. This is working really well for us, and I'll put a card for the video where we make this, as well as a link in my description box. And next to it is our barrel of Comfrey tea fertilizer that I can use on tap, so that I can just throw a bucket under there and get some whenever I need it and just keep replenishing the water and the comfrey. And I have a video on that as well, so I'll leave a card here and a link in the description box. I haven't been able to use it yet because it hasn't been sitting long enough. I have about another week to go, but I'm really anxious to use it. So this garden bed had 2 rows of cabbages, and a rabbit got underneath my covering and ate 1 row of it, my Chinese cabbage. These cabbages are still doing well. I'm excited about that. So I covered them well and put more bricks down to hold the fabric, but I don't want this spot to sit here empty, especially since we are watering it with our drip hose. So I'm going to plant some green beans here. First, I need to get rid of these weeds. If you have not seen or used this kind of hoe, I want to show you how easy this is. So as well as getting the weeds out, I went through and just loosened the soil down about 1 inch so that I can put these beans in. I did water the soil yesterday, so I'll put them in and then I'll come back with some water after I plant them. And I soaked the beans overnight. Let's keep looking at what we have in this garden. We have a new variety of cucumbers for me. Here's the name. I'll let you figure out how to say it. But it's supposed to be resistant to cucumber beetles and the rust and all of that stuff that causes them to die prematurely. You can see I have a lot of blooms on there, and I have not seen any beetles. Now these bottom leaves look a little speckled, but I think it's maybe from the heat. So I could even cut all of those back if I wanted to, in case I was concerned that it was something other than heat. We went from the beautiful 70s to the high 90s just so fast. So everything has been kind of struggling a little through the heat of the day. These are my indeterminate tomatoes, which means they will keep growing up and over this trellis. So yesterday I had to come out and string them up because they were laying on the ground and I had not been able to get to them. So I put a string in the ground there, and then I wrap it around the stem of the tomato, and I just pull the string up to my cow panel, and then it will train the tomato to go in and out of the cow panel. Sorry about the mud on my fingers from planting beans, but it's a real thing. And as you can see, I already have tomatoes on several of my plants, and these I am super excited about. These are an orange peach tomato. So They will be orange in color, taste like peach, and even have a little bit of a peach fuzz on the outside. I can't wait. I've got several of those that are on and getting ready to grow more. Over here I have zucchini, and it is full of fruit. These are kind of tiny. I think this one gets more shade, and that one down there gets more sun because it's so big. So they're not quite ready, almost ready to pick. I want them just a hair bigger. Well, I do see one big one here. I'm going to go ahead and pick it. You see, some of these, they did not fertilize right, so they're not good. So these I take off and I give to the chickens. So I'll work on that later as well. And there's many more in there. And I was sure to move flowers over here this year. I've never had flowers here, but as you can see, these windows right here are where I look out the most. It's in our dining room, and all the flowers were always over in the food forest, and the peach trees blocked the view. So I decided to put flowers here this year and introduce pollinators to all of this area as well. I also added flowers on this side of the tomatoes. Now let's go to the fire pit garden. If you have seen my last video, the fire pit looked horrible. We did a remake of the fire pit. We bought a table on Facebook Marketplace and I repainted it. I repainted the furniture. If you want to see the full video of how we did all of this, I'll put a card here as well as a link in the description box. But we absolutely love this area now. And of course, sitting here, you can see all the flowers in the food forest. So it's a beautiful spot to sit. And you can turn and see all of the gardens or chickens that are out in the salad bar. Now, this fire pit garden, we had to put an electric fence around because things were deciding that they wanted to trample my corn. So every day I come out and see if I see any new signs of trampled corn. And these are the yellow squash. And they too have lots of fruit on them. Oh, that needs to be picked over there. Oh, that probably needs to be picked. I see a few that might not have pollinated well, so I need to pick those off. But for the most part, can you believe the difference from last month? You will see weeds, you guys. We have redone our front porch, which I'll leave a card for here and a link in the description box. We redid the fire pit area, and I'm trying to raise this garden. So weeding has been at the bottom of the list. This is our strawberry box, which we did not even expect strawberries to come back this year because the Bermuda grass and the bindweed just took over. I cleaned it out once. I'm going to clean it out again, and I'm going to mulch the whole thing and see if that will help. So bear with me. One of these days I'll show you this and it'll look much better. Now let's go over to our compost garden because our compost is right here. We're so creative with our names, aren't we? The okra is doing amazing. Again, needs to be weeded, but it's getting there. I think I even saw, I even saw blooms coming on. So that's exciting. That one's got several of them. And is that even a baby okra? It is. Even though the plants aren't very big, they're gonna start producing. I love that. These are the volunteer potatoes because we had potatoes here last year. You can see our peppers are getting nice and tall. They're about 2 feet now and will need to be staked right away. I'm going to be staking peppers and tomatoes later tonight. We're supposed to get rain this afternoon, so I'm hoping that it stops before this evening so I can get out here. These are my determinate tomatoes, so they don't continue growing. They will grow, and in about a 3-week period, they will put on all of their fruit, ripen, and then be done for the year. So you can see they are setting fruit. These are all different varieties. So they all look different. After I tie them up to the cow panels, and I'll go ahead and weed them appropriately. And we have green beans. These are the same kind that I just planted. And as you can see, the rest of our row disappeared when they were younger. And we are getting beans. And I'm gonna wait like another day or so. These are supposed to be a long, straight bean. And I don't know if they'll get a little bit fatter because I've never grown this variety. They're called Kalima green beans. So if you have grown Kalimas, let me know when they're the best to pick. We did pick a few the other day and my granddaughter ate them raw and said they were really good. Oh, now this one looks a little more this fatness that I'm used to in a green bean. Let me see if I can get it off and show you. Yeah, that looks more like what I'm used to. So it's not as skinny as these are. So maybe I'll open it up and see what the beans inside look like. And see if I want to wait or if I want to go ahead and pick them. This is a volunteer pumpkin that must have been in the compost that we brought in because I put a pile of it here and recently moved the pile to the potatoes to cover them up more. We put this fence up to keep it from creeping into this part of the garden, but it's got his mind set on coming this direction. So I keep having to just push it back. We also have watermelon over here. I had a watermelon plant here and something ate it, so I just replanted it. So hopefully it will get going soon and do a good job. That one's doing great. Okay, now let me tell you about my onions. They had so many weeds in them that you couldn't even tell where the onions were. And my struggle was that my hoe that I used earlier when I was planting the green beans was too wide to get in and around them without hurting them. So I looked up trying to find like a little handheld hoe of some sort, and I found this one that is circular. It's only 2.5 inches wide, and it has a little blade on the one edge. And I am telling you, this thing is amazing. It goes under the weeds, just like the big hoe does, and just pulls the whole thing, root and all, out. So I just started using it to see how quickly I could get a bed finished. And I could do one of these beds in 15 minutes. Now I know that still sounds like a lot of time, but if I had to sit and just grab each one of those or use a tool to dig down to get them, it would be impossible. It would take forever. So I got all 3 beds weeded, and I topped off the onions so that they can work on their bulb size instead. And look how nice they look. I could not believe the difference. That tool was amazing. Actually, I used that tool a lot in my food forest when I was weeding it, because then I would just go straight to each weed and pull it right up instead of using the hoe and all my energy to get the area that maybe didn't have weeds and didn't have to worry about it. So I will probably use that out here and all of these grasses that are growing around where the mulch does not cover. This is all very close to my plants, and I don't want a chance hurting them. I'm really excited about that new tool. Thank you so much for coming along. It has been about 5.5 weeks instead of just 4, but it's amazing what 1 month will make in a garden. I hope that your gardens are doing well, and if you're not a gardener, that's okay. I'm glad you came along. If you're new here, welcome. And I hope you consider subscribing and giving it a thumbs up and sharing it with anyone that you know likes to garden. And for those of you returning, thank you so much for being faithful viewers. Until next time, blessings on you and yours.